Priya Sharma, a devoted wife searching for love, Rajesh Sharma, the hardworking husband blinded by trust, and Mark Lewis, the charming neighbor consumed by obsession. Three lives colliding in a secret affair that would shatter a marriage, destroy a family, and end in a shocking act of deadly betrayal. Priya Sharma's life in Los Angeles seemed carefully arranged, as though nothing could possibly go wrong. She had moved to the United States with her husband, Rajesh, 5 years earlier, leaving behind her family in India and the bustling streets of Mumbai. Their neighborhood was the kind of place where lawns were trimmed neatly, children played outside after school, and neighbors waved politely from their driveways. From the outside, the Sharmas looked like any other hard-working immigrant couple building a future together. Priya was often seen tending to her small flower garden in the front yard, her bright saris and warm smile making her stand out in the quiet suburban landscape. She would greet passers-by with a gentle nod, and many admired her for keeping the traditional ways of her culture alive in a foreign land. But beneath the surface, Priya carried a loneliness that few around her could sense. Her husband's career in IT demanded long hours, late nights, and frequent business trips. Rajesh often left early in the morning and returned well past dinner, his mind filled with work and responsibilities. He believed he was securing a better life for them both, yet in doing so, he created a distance that grew each day. Priya tried to fill the emptiness by keeping herself busy. She joined a local cooking group, took occasional walks around the block, and spoke to her parents in India through video calls, but the time zone difference meant those conversations were always short and rushed. The silence inside her home stretched longer with every passing week. For Priya, the move to America had been filled with promises of excitement, but reality felt far from that dream. She missed the chaos of Indian streets, the warmth of family gatherings, and the comfort of knowing someone was always nearby. The quiet of Los Angeles suburbs was beautiful, but it was also suffocating. Friends from the Indian community lived scattered across the city, busy with their own lives, and she found it difficult to form close connections. Slowly, the feeling of being unseen began to weigh heavily on her. What the neighbors observed was a woman who seemed content, smiling as she watered her plants or carried groceries into the house. What they could not see was the longing behind her eyes. Priya was a woman searching for something she couldn't name: companionship, excitement, or perhaps simply a reminder that she was more than a wife left waiting in a quiet house. It was in this fragile state of mind that her life would begin to change, setting in motion a chain of events that no one in that peaceful neighborhood could have imagined. It was during one of her lonely afternoons that Priya first noticed the new neighbor moving in next door. His name was Mark Lewis, a man in his mid-30s with a rugged appearance and the kind of charm that came easily. He had recently divorced and was looking for a fresh start, though Priya knew none of this at first. From her garden, she watched him unload boxes, laughing with the movers, and for reasons she couldn't explain, her curiosity lingered longer than it should have. In the weeks that followed, their paths crossed more often. At first, it was simple, polite exchanges, nods of acknowledgement, a quick hello, or a smile when their eyes met across the driveways. But soon those brief encounters turned into short conversations, then into moments that stretched too long to be innocent. Mark carried himself differently from Rajesh. He was relaxed, unhurried, and seemed to notice small details about the world around him. When he complimented the flowers in Priya's garden or mentioned how nice her sari looked, it was as if he truly meant it, unlike the mechanical greetings she often heard. Priya found herself anticipating those encounters, her heart quickening in ways she hadn't felt in years. What began as a neighborly friendship slowly transformed into a dangerous connection. She justified it at first, telling herself there was nothing wrong with a little company, but the lines blurred quickly. Mark invited her inside his home one afternoon under the pretense of helping him arrange furniture. That simple act opened the door to something that could not easily be undone. As days turned into weeks, secrecy became part of her life. She slipped away under small excuses, short walks, errands that stretched too long, phone calls she pretended to take in private. Each meeting with Mark pulled her deeper into a world she both craved and feared. His attention filled the emptiness her husband's absence had created, and the thrill of doing something forbidden only intensified her desire. Yet with every stolen kiss and every whispered moment behind closed curtains, the weight of her choices pressed harder on her conscience. She lived in constant fear that Rajesh might notice, or worse, that someone from their conservative community would see her and spread word back to India. The duality of her existence consumed her, the dutiful wife in daylight and the reckless lover in secrecy. It was a delicate balance, and deep down, Priya knew it could not last forever. The cracks in Priya's carefully hidden secret began to appear in subtle ways, and it was Rajesh who noticed them first. For years he had trusted his wife completely, but small details suddenly seemed out of place. Priya, once predictable in her routines, began stepping outside late in the evenings under the excuse of needing fresh air. Sometimes she returned flustered, her cheeks flushed and her explanations vague. Rajesh also noticed her growing distraction. She seemed distant during their rare dinners together, staring at her plate rather than engaging in conversation. The first real warning came when he stumbled upon a men's jacket draped casually over a chair in their garage, far too large to belong to him. Priya brushed it off with a nervous laugh, claiming a neighbor had left it behind, but the unease in Rajesh's mind refused to settle. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Priya's relationship with Mark had shifted. What once felt thrilling now carried a heavy burden of expectation. Mark, no longer content with secret encounters, began pushing for more. He told Priya he wanted her to leave her husband to build a future together without hiding. His words, once filled with charm, grew sharper as impatience gnawed at him. Priya, however, hesitated at every turn. The idea of abandoning Rajesh and facing the disgrace from her family in India terrified her. She feared the judgment of her community, where loyalty and reputation held immense weight. Each time she delayed making a decision, Mark's frustration deepened. The dynamic between them darkened. Their meetings, once marked by passion, often ended in arguments. Mark accused her of stringing him along, while Priya tried desperately to calm him without committing to a choice she could not make. She began to sense a dangerous edge in his behavior, a temper that simmered just beneath the surface. Neighbors, though unaware of the affair, noticed small things as well: raised voices from inside Mark's house, hurried glances exchanged in driveways, tension that lingered in the air. At home, Rajesh's suspicion grew into quiet vigilance. He started paying closer attention, checking Priya's phone when she wasn't looking, and keeping track of her movements. Though he had no proof, his instincts told him something was wrong. Priya felt trapped in the tightening grip of two men, one demanding answers, the other quietly piecing together the truth. The fragile balance she had maintained for months was collapsing, and she could sense that it was only a matter of time before everything unraveled in ways she could not control. The night everything unraveled began like many others, with Priya slipping next door under the cover of darkness. She told herself it would be the last time, that she would finally explain her decision to stay with Rajesh and end the affair for good. In her heart, she hoped Mark would understand, even if it meant anger or disappointment. But when she entered his house, the atmosphere was already tense. Mark's eyes carried a sharpness she had never seen before, and his voice lacked the warmth that had once drawn her in. He had grown tired of waiting, tired of secrets, and most of all, tired of being told no. For him, Priya was not just a lover. She was an escape from his loneliness, and he could not bear to let her go. As Priya spoke of her fears, her marriage, her reputation, the cultural shame that would follow her if she left, Mark's patience shattered. What he had once dismissed as hesitation now felt like betrayal. Rage flared, swift and uncontrollable, fueled by months of longing and rejection. Neighbors later recalled hearing strange noises that night, muffled sounds of movement and a loud thud, though at the time they brushed it off as nothing unusual. Priya never returned home. When morning came, Rajesh awoke to an empty bed and no sign of his wife. At first, he believed she had gone for a walk, but hours passed with no word. Her phone went unanswered, and unease grew into panic. By the afternoon, he contacted the police to report her missing. Investigators arrived, questioning neighbors and canvassing the area. It didn't take long before suspicion turned toward Mark. He was known to have a close rapport with Priya, and his behavior during questioning seemed oddly defensive. Police began piecing together the timeline. Security cameras from nearby houses revealed Priya entering Mark's home the night she vanished, yet there was no footage of her leaving. A search of his property uncovered alarming evidence: small bloodstains in the garage, hastily cleaned but still visible under forensic lights. The discovery painted a grim picture, one that left little room for doubt. Rajesh, heartbroken and stunned, was forced to face the reality that his wife had not only hidden a secret life, but had also met a violent end because of it. The investigation now turned into a hunt for the truth inside Mark's walls. Behind the ordinary facade of his suburban home, police uncovered the horrifying result of a love that had spiraled into obsession, a night where passion gave way to fury, and a choice that could never be undone. The weight of evidence left Mark with little room to maneuver, and under relentless questioning, the truth finally came out. He admitted that during an argument his anger overwhelmed him. Priya's refusal to leave her husband was the final spark that ignited his fury. In a violent outburst, he struck her, and when she collapsed, he claimed panic overtook him. Instead of calling for help, he tried to cover up what he had done, hiding her body in a desperate attempt to delay the inevitable. His confession was cold and fragmented, as though he struggled to face the reality of what he had destroyed. For Rajesh, the revelation was devastating. Not only did he lose his wife in the most brutal way possible, but he also had to confront the painful truth of her betrayal. The woman he had trusted, the life he had built with her, and the sacrifices he had made for their future in America, all of it seemed shattered beyond repair. Friends and members of the Indian community were stunned, torn between sympathy for Rajesh and disbelief at the double life Priya had been leading. The tragedy was not only personal, but also cultural, sparking whispered conversations about honor, loyalty, and the dangers of secrecy. The courtroom proceedings drew significant attention. Prosecutors painted Mark as a man consumed by obsession, someone who allowed rejection to spiral into deadly violence. The defense argued he acted in a moment of blind rage without premeditation, but the jury was unmoved. The evidence was overwhelming: the blood in his garage, the security footage, and his own confession. Mark was sentenced to life in prison, a punishment that reflected both the seriousness of his crime and the irreversible loss he had caused. The neighborhood that had once seemed quiet and safe was never the same again. For months, residents passed by the two houses with heavy hearts, reminded of the dark truth hidden behind closed doors. Rajesh eventually moved away, unable to bear the constant memories. Mark's home was sold, but its reputation lingered, a grim reminder of the night when ordinary suburban walls concealed something horrific. The story of Priya Sharma became a cautionary tale of choices made in loneliness, of secrets kept too long, and of the tragic price of forbidden love. Her life ended in silence, but the echoes of her decisions rippled through families, friendships, and a community left to wonder how something so devastating could happen in a place that once felt untouched by violence.